Welcome to the Embedding AI Assisted Coding session at Ready to Teach Week. This session is going to be facilitated by myself, Anisha. And today we've got a co-facilitator as well, which is Dr. Felix Egger, and he's been the Senior Research Assistant on the project as well. So I must say it's really heartwarming to actually see this many people turn up for a 9 a.m. session. So we'll start with an acknowledgement of country. The University of Queensland acknowledges the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet. We pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognise their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. So the session that we planned for you today is really practical. So probably got a little bit of an overview and an introduction to what we've been doing on our teaching innovation grant. Um, but the rest of the time is that we really want you to engage with some of the resources, review it, discuss it. So we will have breakout groups, and then we'll have a little bit of report back and final discussions. And then we'll talk through some next steps where you can get more involved with the actual teaching innovation team and also start to participate in our co-design sessions and perhaps even try to embed one of our resources in your course. So I guess the first thing is our teaching innovation grant had a really long title. When we do Ready to Teach Week in other places, we've just been calling it AI assisted coding. Um, But the original grant that we put in was called Creators of Tomorrow. And that was really trying to set a vision for what we see our students being able to do when they graduate or what they will need to be able to do in the coming years. And so specifically, it was integrating prompt engineering, responsible AI into discipline specific curriculum. So this teaching innovation grant was successful and it has been funded for semester two from semester two 2024 to the end of 2025. Um, I guess the beginnings of this particular teaching innovation grant would have started at a workshop that was run by Kate O'Brien, Professor Kate O'Brien from chemical engineering. Um, and one of the things there was it was all chemical engineering examples, but it was using AI assisted coding, but then applying discipline knowledge to get yourself further. Um, that really appealed to me, and it's definitely a direction I think we will head more and more. Um, and also just the possibilities of not necessarily being trained in computer science. And obviously, coding lets us do more and do greater analysis on bigger data sets and get those insights. But just having the ability to actually now be able to do it, be AI assisted, and actually go further. So that was something that was really appealing and a skill that I thought was really needed. And so basically, teamed up. So we do have representation on the Teaching Innovation Grant from Italy, from HABS, HAS, Bell, and even within the EIT Let's team inside here. Um, what do we really want to deliver? So we're really trying to develop modules that academics can actually embed within their courses. We've also developed a little bit of a chatbot. We're targeting areas such as data analysis. And so these types of courses are across the university using either Python or R, um, not necessarily with students that actually have the computer science background, but we also then want to take on things like fundamental programming as well and see how we can start to embed um, AI assisted learning and AI assisted code generation inside there. And we also have the theme of responsible AI. So, as I was basically saying, most students will encounter some form of programming or coding, um, and they might not necessarily be going through hardcore fundamental programming. So, anybody that's ever tried to teach programming, whether it's in data analysis or even coming from computer science or fundamental um, concepts where you're becoming an actual programmer or software developer at the end of your degree program, what you realize is that teaching programming is really hard. Um, it's obviously very different from writing and giving instructions in English. And one of the things that large language models such as ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude, Anthropic has brought to the table is the ability to now start to converse with a computer just using your natural language. Um, and obviously, in these cases, we're doing that to be able to then generate the code. So, what our teaching innovation grant is really trying to do is say, can we harness the power of generative AI and start to not only embed AI literacy in what we're doing, help students learn to code with generative AI, um, but also get them further along the path of their analysis in what they're doing. And so this session, um, it's to actually show some of the things that we've been working on, but also to start to get more community involvement. So the UQ community involvement is really important to us. So I'm not going to talk for too long um, before we kind of show you what resources we've been building. But a couple of points that I just want to make is this idea of these large language models being able to generate code and then the impact this is going to have on how we teach programming across different disciplines. Um, a lot of this, the moment they got released, had started happening. So this was just a review, and I would have done this at the start of last year, and it looked at technical programming book publications. So these are, the books that actually get published. Um, they usually are pretty much on track because they're always commissioning new books when they see a new technology. And so you can see here basically that they've started teaching programming in a slightly different way. Um, so new techniques. So before we'd go straight into, let's learn basics, fundamentals, and let's start writing code to do different things. The approach kind of got flipped with generative AI, where they're now starting to look at reading code. That's a really important skill because you're basically writing instructions and you're generating code. Now you also need to be able to read code. And this idea that you're reading code, that's probably a little bit more challenging because it can take someone quite a long time in their career to be able to effectively read other people's code. I think you get used to code that you've written, and then in writing it, you understand it a lot more. But if you're flipping that skill, reading code becomes really important. Being able to break down into functional decomposition or top down design becomes really important, as well as being able to debug and basically test and validate what comes out of these large language models. So I just wanted to highlight that this flip has already started happening in other industries, and a lot of students that come through um, who are now in high school and then coming to university are probably going to encounter this first. The second thing I want to highlight is that yes, large language models can generate code and do a lot of what we'd consider student assignments and student homework. But they also enable us to mark things and provide feedback in different ways. And so this is a publication. One of the authors on here is Paul Denny. So Paul Denny is actually at UQ today, and he's going to be giving a talk at 11 o'clock. Um, and so Paul Denny has actually been involved in a number of innovations and was a really early adopter of generative AI in his programming courses. And so this is a little technique where, and he's called this explain in plain English. And it is a technique that has existed for a long time. But without large language models, we wouldn't necessarily be able to give students feedback. And so essentially, we've now got this new ability where we can actually start showing these code snippets and developing that reading code skill as well. And this is a nice activity to actually scaffold code understanding. So now we'll just head to what we've actually been creating. Um, so the first thing, or the first thing that we've really been trying to target is how can we make some modules that are really lightweight deliverables, don't take students too long to get through. Also incorporate some of that AI feedback inside of them, um, and just ease that sort of ability for students to actually use a large language model, generate some code, get some good advice. So obviously, we were embedding things like where our focus is really on trying to get students to learn with generative AI and also get some AI literacy, so how to write things like prompts, and then actually do some data analysis. So they're learning those fundamentals all at the same time inside of this. So we do things like embed a code editor that can actually run pandas code and Python code and actually display charts with Matplotlib. Um, we've tried to do explain as plain English tasks as well. We're still working on finessing the prompts behind some of those. Um, but this is where we're at with our AI assisted data analysis module. So, this is one of the things we'd like you to take a look at today, discuss, and basically, give us your thoughts, your feedback on what else we should be including, and maybe what else how we can actually do things a little bit better. So, this is the first resource. Don't worry about the links. When you do go into breakout rooms, I will provide those to you. The second resource that we've been working on um, is a chatbot tutor. And the way we've designed this prompt is that it can design exercises for the students. So it can help them learn how to actually debug things, learn to use a chatbot tutor to actually help them with their code and help them learn rather than just give specific answers. And while we in the module embed a few explain in plain English exercises and a few examples, these large language model chatbot tutors can pretty much give an infinite supply of these exercises if the student wanted to get them. So one of the things we do in the module um, is actually show students how to write a prompt like this and give them an example so they can take it and reuse it in any of the chatbots that they're actually using. So this is the second resource. With this one, we're still trying to figure out how we actually roll this out through UQ. So the module, the tools we've used and the way we render it, you can take a copy of the HTML. They're all just using Auto, which is a markdown to HTML converter. Um, with the chatbot tutor, however, we're still trying to think of and explore with Italy and ITS what's the best way to actually give you access to embed this in your course. But as you can see, we've obviously got a link to play with. It is actually a custom GBT at the moment, so we're hoping somebody in your group that you placed in actually has access to it. So those are the two resources you can take a look at. You can choose, or you can decide to focus on, play with both. That's up to you entirely. What we'd like you to do, so we're now going to go into breakout rooms, essentially. I guess maybe before we go into breakout rooms, I should say, does anybody have any questions? Okay, no questions. All right. So what I'm going to do is put you in breakout rooms, and in each breakout room, I'll actually share these links so you can go and have a look at the data analysis module or the chatbot or both in your group. We've got some key things we wanted you to think about when you do this. So I think we've got a mix of staff here today, and that is really excellent. It's great to get that diversity and different perspectives as input into what we're doing. So educators, you know, can think about questions about would this work in your course? What else should we be including? And that could be different content to cover, different types of activities. Also, what sport would you need to embed this in your course? Students, particularly, what should we really be covering? What would make this really useful for you? And of course, learning designers, you can obviously take your teaching and learning hats and think about, how we've actually designed the module. How would this be more effective for both educators and students? Okay, so if you give me a second, I'm going to try and make breakout rooms.
just also to say before we go into the breakout rooms, we've got a Padlet set up where we'd like to collect your responses to these specific questions, and then a few of you from the breakout rooms we'd like you to report back to the group from your perspective or from what your group has discussed or discovered about the two resources. And in that way, we'll hopefully get a good cross-section of perspectives from everyone on this call today, which is hopefully a good cross-section of the teaching and learning community at UQ.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Felix. All right, so I'm going to put everybody into a breakout room, and then I will come into each breakout room and share the links to these resources, which includes the module, the chatbot, and the Padlet link.
And we will be swapping between the rooms.
Okay, I guess we've come back from the breakout rooms, and maybe we can head to, I won't put people on the spot, but maybe we can head to just having a little bit of a report back from each group. So I guess who wants to go first?
We'll go. So we had, I don't know, lots of fun playing with this and saw lots of opportunity. I think mainly outside of more traditional programming spaces, so that where we didn't have any actual programming teaching really built in, but that expectation that people did some programming work. Really enjoyed the module. The live feedback seemed really valuable. There was a recommendation from Alois around putting it maybe in the Student AI Hub, and that sort of model of getting it out more broadly to students would be great. Because we all looked at it and went, this is really useful for playing in this space. Also thought just that mode and way of building and integrating was fun and interesting. And I think Felix mentioned the plan for a co-design session to look at tweaking it and updating it. And there were some things around some of the feedback, some of the way things are structured. We would love to see if it would work differently if we did something else like that, and got excited around that side as well.
Oh, great.
Liz, did you want to add anything else on the module?
No, I think that's the main thing. I was just thinking that I'm not personally teaching coding, but I can see for my honor students who need to develop some skills, this would be great because it's a very friendly way of getting to know a bit of coding. And as you say, it only takes like 2 hours. So it would be, I think, if it would be available to more students, that would be really useful, and staff probably. Yeah. And with the chat, we also looked at the chatbot, and the chatbot works quite well. We use it to say, oh, I'm going to analyze some data in MATLAB, so a very specific program. And then it started off and then it asked us where we were, and then we said, oh, we know nothing, basically. And it really took us back to all the way to the beginning. And then we said, speed it up, and it did. So, and I like the feedback with the emojis and just really friendly. So that's nice. Yeah.
The one issue we hit was the free prompt limit, which
the paywall.
Yeah, even with just the really short playing around, we got there, which was a bit of a surprise. I thought we'd have a little bit more.
Mm.
Do you know what the limit is? How high is it for the free plan?
How many messages did you go through there, Dom, I guess?
All right, I'll do a quick count.
My experience is not entirely consistent. Some days it's high, some days it's low.
Did anyone try it on the Microsoft Copilot? Does it work on that? No, it only works on ChatGPT and Isha at this stage.
I don't know. We need to test it. It might need a little bit of tweaking for the Microsoft environment. So that we can add on. I glad it on my list to actually do and explore.
Yeah, we had 10 prompts backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
I think it might also depend on how many words or tokens are in your conversations with it and what it's generating as to how much of a conversation it'll give you on the free tier. Okay. Anybody else from another group?
Yeah, I can have a chat. So our group was fortunate enough to have people from all three categories. So we had educators, students, and learning designers as well. And also all except one of us had absolutely no to minimal background in coding. And we looked at the data analysis module. It's obviously quite detailed and hefty, so well beyond the constraints of the time we have to go through everything in detail. But yeah, we found it incredibly useful. We all shared a lot of anxieties about coding and AI, and kind of we can see the potential of it coming into each of our workplaces. And I guess it's realizing that it's going to be an essential skill for now and in the future. Having a module like this is extremely helpful, just to kind of break down that anxiety a little bit, create a little bit of familiarity, and kind of demystify coding. Because with I don't know if I'm assuming a lot of people here have a coding background. Without the coding background going into it, it's like a slap in the face. There's a lot. So having something systematic like this is it's extremely helpful and useful.
Okay, good to know. Anybody else from a group before we wrap up?
Tom,
we-
Tom had some good feedback.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think from a student perspective, it's very approachable. We looked at predominantly the module. What we found is that with some of the free text options, so obviously, they're using the module, it asks what's a mean or how is a mean calculated, and the large language model feedback was very, very specific about what it wanted. So, you could type in, the sum of the values divided by the number of observations.
Yeah.
And it goes, oh, no, you must do this and then you must do that. So there was a bit of that. And considering that was sort of the first option of the physical involvement in the task, we thought that might be a bit, it might put people off. I know that Kate was also mentioning in our group that she was looking to incorporate this kind of thing as a tutorial for students, which I think is a brilliant idea, and pitching it to sort of different levels. It's from a student perspective, it seems very approachable. I don't have a coding background. I'm a PhD. I'm 3 weeks into my PhD, so I'm still learning this very fresh. But it seems like it would be something which would be very hands-on. It's something which you can go back to at your own time and retackle. And certainly those labs, further down, it is a hands-on, practical approach to things. And it may be a different tool, that obviously tutorials, you have to run through specific exercises in the past. This may be a bit more, certainly if you can generate different scenarios of like, do this and then generate this, and then it might be something that can, give the students more diversity in what they're doing, which may help their learning. Yeah.
Great. So I think I'm still sharing. Thank you, everybody. Very insightful. I think with the free text, we still need to do a little bit of prompt engineering to make it more flexible or upgrade the model that we're using. I think we were using the mini model. We might have to actually go for a bigger model so that it's able to understand a broader range of what students enter into those text boxes. So thank you for coming, especially because this was at 9 a.m. We're reaching the end of our hour, but I just wanted to highlight some next steps for us. So I think we are going to trial 2 of our modules. We also have another one on just creating web apps, which I'll embed in my own course. And Kate and Felix are both going to trial the data analysis module in their courses this semester. But we also think this is the first step into just exposing what we're actually doing and thinking in the Teaching Innovation Grant. We actually want to open up for bigger discussions and more co-design sessions. So we actually have ethics to run co-design workshops that include both educators, learning designers, as well as students. And so this will be, obviously a little bit longer time span. We want to go for 2 hours, and basically get you to add to the module, refine things, even perhaps playing with prompts and different techniques that you'd like to include in these modules. If you are interested in any of these, please send me an email. I've put my email address up here. And Chloe has also been kind enough to put up a poll at the moment. And with that, I thank everybody that's attended today, and thank you to Felix and Kate that have been involved in the project, as well as Jason.